Hi, my name is Félix Matos Rodríguez and I am the Chancellor of the City University of New York. People who know me call me Felo, and this is my new conversation space on CUNY TV, Café con Felo. Bienvenidos a Café con Felo. Today we're honored to welcome Congresswoman Grace Meng, an extraordinary leader who's been a champion for education, equality, and community empowerment across Queens and beyond. Congresswoman Meng made history as the first Asian American elected to represent New York in the U.S. House of Representatives back in 2013. I want to thank her for her support of the institutions like Queens College and Queensborough Community College for securing millions in federal funding for projects like the Wet Lab, a wastewater research lab at Queens College, to advocating for a childcare center at Queensborough Community College. She has worked tirelessly to enhance access to education and opportunities for all. But Congresswoman Meng's work extends beyond education. She has fought against hate crimes, promoted cultural awareness, particularly of Asian heritage, and supported small businesses, all while remaining deeply connected to the communities that she serves. Today, we'll discuss her remarkable journey and the impact she has made on education, CUNY, and our city. Congresswoman, it is a privilege and a joy to have you here in the show. We always begin with a coffee-related question, so there must be so many wonderful coffee houses in the district. Any that you would recommend to our viewers if they were happen to be in Queens?
Well, first, thank you to you, Chancellor, and to the whole CUNY family for including me today. It is such an honor and privilege to be here and to represent two of our amazing CUNY institutions, Queens College and Queensborough Community College. Okay, you're gonna get me in trouble. I cannot pick any one business. However, I will say that my favorite types of coffee to get are coffee from Colombian bakeries and from our local bagel shops. Those are my favorites.
That is a very good, safe political answer, but I mean, the great thing is that you're in a district that is just, you know, so many ethnic neighborhoods, so diversity, and that reflects in the foods and all that. So, well said. So let's talk a little bit about your journey from a public interest lawyer, right, which is the beginning of your, let's say, professional career, to now 7 terms in Congress.
Sure. Well, honestly, as a kid growing up in Queens, I never thought that I wanted to go into politics. I was a very shy kid. I never even took political science during college. However, I thought as I grew older that being a daughter of immigrants, I wanted to give back to my community. And I wanted to do that in a way where I can help everyday people have better access to their government services. I realized that a lot of people don't know about what government does for them and how it can literally help improve their lives. And so I wanted to be a part of that.
So that's began in public interest law, and then you went to serve in the Assembly first here in New York, and then ran for Congress. So what got you into that first, let's say, to go to the Assembly? So
when I ran for the Assembly, I was a little naive. I thought I could do a better job than the person who was there. And I thought, hey, let's give it a try. I failed my first time, and then I tried again 2 years later, and I made it to the New York State Assembly. While I was there a few years in, my congressman, Gary Ackerman, suddenly announced that he was retiring. And so I had about 36 hours to think about and decide and get ready for a congressional race. And 12 years later, obviously I did it, and I'm very privileged to be here.
And I'll point out another wonderful public servant, Gary Ackerman, and a Queens College graduate.
That's right. That's right.
Very proud of those fruits.
Yeah.
Let me say, I mean, very distinguished, career in Congress. You're an appropriator now, which is a badge of distinction and allows you to be particularly helpful in funding projects and steering legislation. You have leadership roles in the Democratic minority now in the House. So much legislation, but can you point one or two bills that you are sort of particularly proud that either you initiated or that your leadership played a key role in getting them to enacted into law?
Sure. Well, one thing that I worked on a lot that came up because of COVID was the rise in hate and discrimination against Asian Americans. And this happened a lot during the pandemic. And so it was really, while a sad moment, it was also very beautiful because we were able to work with so many different groups from so many different backgrounds who everyone unfortunately knows what it's like to be discriminated against or hate. And so in a very tough time in this country, different communities banded together, even in New York, where communities are sometimes in their own silos. Groups were able to come together, share stories, share best practices, and we put together this legislation that tries to minimize hate and tries to spread the word and support local community groups and to establish more of a community-based approach to targeting and combating these hate crimes.
Which is always ongoing work. I mean,
Yes.
unfortunately, that never ends,
Yeah.
and education plays a key role in sort of, breaking away with stereotypes and making people understand people of
Yeah.
different groups a lot more. But you also need some enforcement when people
Yeah.
keep insisting and breaking the rules and behaving in ways that are inappropriate. And thank you for your leadership in that, because clearly, whatever works in this case, the Asian American community, also works for other groups too, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
thank you for that. Let me ask you about another work, and it's something that got the privilege of working together. And for full disclosure for the audience, I was the president of Queens College. I had the joy of having you represent us in Congress and be an incredible partner and advocate. So I can speak from experience. But one of the things that we worked together, I know that is very, very important to you, was establishing a small business office in the campus to better serve the community there in Flushing and nearby. Can you tell me a little bit about why are you so passionate about small businesses? What is it that you think that they do, and why you've been such a great advocate for supporting them?
Sure. Well, if you look around Queens and you look around New York City, we see that small businesses are truly the backbone of our communities, not just statistically, but also just being a part of the community. It's almost a part of its physical and emotional and economic infrastructure. And our families depend on them and they support them and literally help pave the way for people to achieve their American dream. And so what we wanted to see through Queens College, and thank you so much for your partnership, was that we wanted a small business development center there, just like it exists in other colleges as well. And so because we were able to work so closely with the federal government and with Queens College and the state, we were able to set up a small business development center that was actually started a few years before COVID. But I don't even know if I ever fully told you, when COVID hit, that center was integral to the literal survival of so many of our small businesses. They reached out on their own to help local businesses and in multiple languages and literally helped save people's businesses.
And I know it was, so because they had to understand all the support that was being provided by the government to sustain the small business, which is sort of key to the community, and there's such anchors, like you said. They support local community groups with their with philanthropic support in those communities, and it's one of the things. College presidents, we always love to name the big name employers that we send our students to, and that's part of what we need to do. But the majority of our students are going to end up either owning or being employees in small businesses, and we need to find ways to connect with them better. So that's why I thought that when you knock on the door and say, why don't we have this at Queens College, it was a win-win for everybody, and I've seen the office thrive, so thank you so much for the leadership. You mentioned before in your personal journey the importance to you as a daughter of immigrants, right? To how that connection and that desire to service that community in your experience has shaped the way that you look at legislation, at needs. Clearly, immigration is a key topic in the country, fixing the immigration laws and issues in the country. What would that roadmap look like in terms of your perspective, in terms of policy?
Oh, this has been very frustrating because Congress has not been able to get this done since even before I got there, but definitely not through the 12 years that I've been there. It's very frustrating. There are many fingers to be pointed, but that's part of the reason why we are here where we are today. I think that if I had a magic wand, I would want to remind everyone that America is unique. America, is a place where every single person should have the opportunity to achieve their American dream. And what that means is about a humane way to pass immigration laws, a humane way to support and keep families together. And that stems from backlogs in our immigration system. When a citizen or green card holder is petitioning for their immediate relative to come over, it shouldn't take over 10 years, right? And so what we have to realize is it's not just about, illegal or legal. It's about keeping families together. And I know people are concerned about issues like border security and safety, and we're going to hear a lot in the next few weeks and months. But we must keep our priorities straight and treat every person like like a human being.
The new administration has rolled out a whole slew of executive orders. I think that we could do a couple of shows on your comments on different aspects of them. Would you like to comment on any of those or the ones related to immigration, since we're talking about that, in terms of your perspective on a response to that?
So I think it's important to remind everyone that everyone is an American. Unless you were a Native American, we are all immigrants. Whether your family has been here for 2 weeks or whether your family has been here for 3, 4 generations, that we are all Americans. And I think that there's going to be a lot of conversation about immigration, of course. And it's important that we are not being lazy in our talking points and that we are not painting too broad of a brush over every single immigrant or only picking out certain immigrant communities. Because when I think of immigrants, it's just not, people from one part of the world. It's just not Latinos. It's also Irish people and Italians in my district whose grandparents and parents suffered discrimination. So I remind people that we all have so much more in common than we have different from each other. And times are tough. Even though COVID was a few years ago, our country and the rest of the world overcame a global pandemic, and the times after that will be difficult. And we are still slowly, climbing out of that. And so we need to be careful, when we're trying to find solutions, that we are digging deeper and that we are thinking in a more compassionate way of finding solutions.
And I mean, to that point, one of the things that we've been working with our students who are undocumented is to let them know. I mean, first, one of the things is correct information. As you know, one of the things that is more damaging to immigrants at all times is misinformation, and people take advantage of spreading false rumors or conducting people in the wrong direction in terms of how the best path to get legalized their status. So one of the things that we're trying to do with our students is making sure they have access to correct information, so they can, depending on each situation is very different, so they can access some of the resources and the right offices to sort of stabilize their situation, providing mental health support, because obviously there's a lot of anxiety when you hear about raids and about even if it's not just you, but your neighbors, your family members who could be affected, and then we hope that there's a way in which through Congress and through a bipartisan way, we can find a way that we find the right balance, right, in terms of embracing the individuals who are here, who've been supportive and and behaving well and paying their taxes and contributing to all the things that we do, and have a policy that brings families together and all the things that we want. So I know that you've been a key leader in that space. The Lunar New Year happened yesterday, and I know the producers here don't like me to sort of give specific dates that date the show. We're very proud at CUNY that for the first time, we celebrated as a holiday in the university. So talk to me a little bit about your role in terms of as the first New Yorker Asian American representing in Congress. How do you fill those shoes?
So this was actually one of my first pieces of legislation when I was in the New York State Assembly. I felt it was very important, even if just symbolic, to have these holidays. You know, growing up as a kid in New York City, we always had holidays like Rosh Hashanah off, Jewish New Year. And even though I didn't celebrate Rosh Hashanah, trust me, as a kid, I was thrilled to have 2 days off.
Yes, yes.
And I always wondered, why don't I get off for my New Year? But I think what is great about now the city and the state has a school day off for Lunar New Year and other holidays as well, which we've all fought together for. What's great is that it's not just a day off, right? Contrary to what the kids may believe. It's an opportunity because for education, because when there's a holiday, the whole school, all the kids, whether they celebrate it or not, learn about these important symbols of a culture that is part of America. And I think in the coming weeks and months ahead, we may also see efforts to superficially remove some of these holidays. And it will not, it is frustrating, but it will not hold us back, because growing up as a kid in New York and America, we didn't have Lunar New Year off. We didn't have Juneteenth off, right? We didn't have these holidays off, but our culture and our communities and our stories were still not erased. So we still count, we all still count, we are all still part of America, no matter what they try to take away.
I have the pleasure of not just knowing you as a wonderful public servant, but got a little bit of a glimpse of Grace Meng, the mom and the spouse. We both share spouses who are dentists. We both share having 2 boys. And I have the pleasure of seeing you interact as a mom with your children. So let me ask you something that I ask our guests. You have a very public role, a public bio. I mean, anybody can go and Google and find all kinds of things about your life. Is there something that is not in those official bios that you think is very important to who you are, that you don't think people get to know, that you'd like to share with people in the program?
Well, this is kind of fun and silly, but I love going to thrift stores and yard sales. This is what I love to do in my spare time.
Do you end up buying things, or you one of those people that just goes and shops and doesn't get anything?
I love to spend money there. So I buy things, everything from holiday decorations to I got a bar cart once. But what's just as fun about, aside from purchasing items, is when I'm at a yard sale, I run into people. I meet people for the first time. I meet their families, because usually you're at someone's, little yard in Queens, and the whole family's sitting around. And I get to meet people and hear their stories and hear about their connections with whatever items they're selling. And so that really is something that is really fun and therapeutic for me.
Well, but actually, and I would imagine that you probably feel a little pressure to end up buying something if they know it's the Congresswoman who's there, right?
I usually don't reveal who I am.
I know, but if they know you, then you're busted. You have to probably get
There's no
something.
pressure. I love buying things.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, another thing which I think is because I do know how engaged you are with your children, and how that is really a real part of your identity and who you are, even though you lead this very busy life. And you're also, we're talking before the show, you are a wonderful mentor of staff in your office. I mean, you have some great, historically, great members of your team that I have the pleasure of working with. They tend to go to bigger and better things, if you want to think about it that way. And that doesn't happen by accident. No, it normally means that A, you have a good eye for talent, and that you have a good eye for mentoring talent. Advice. I mean, you have, I'm sure you go to a lot of schools in the districts, K-12, you have the CUNY schools and others in the district. What advice would you give, particularly, let's say, to a woman who might want to have, you know, her family, a very public, exciting career? How do you balance that? What advice would you give to them, and if they were like beginning their journey and ask you for feedback?
Two things. One is being practical, you need an infrastructure, right? Whether you're taking care of your babies or whether you're taking care of a sick relative, you need an infrastructure. And for some people, that's very easy, right? My mom and my mother-in-law live nearby, and even my grandma when she was younger, and everybody pitched in to help me. So I always had someone available. Not everybody has that, and not everyone can afford to hire someone, for example. And that's part of the reason why I'm pushing that childcare
at Queensboro. Yes.
At Queensboro, I think that this is, if I had a magic wand, every workplace would have childcare provided for people, because it's not just about a mom, right? It's about a dad, and you know, whatever your family unit looks like. And so that's one thing. And the second thing is, especially for women who aren't always haven't always been seen in positions of leadership and power. We don't always know what that looks like. And so one thing is to truly understand and appreciate who you are and what you bring to the table, and understand how that is valuable to the rooms that you are sitting in, and be proud of that.
And but particularly appreciate all that support for the Child Care Center at Queensboro, and I look forward to cutting that ribbon very, very soon. So we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll hear directly from students at Queensboro Community College who have some great questions for Congresswoman Grace Meng.
And smoother and productive because we're walking together.
Welcome back. You are watching Café con Felo, and my guest today is New York Congresswoman Grace Meng. Queensboro Community College calls Congresswoman Meng a true friend of the college, because we hear she always begins every conversation when she goes to the campus by asking, what do you need and how can I support you? That kind of dedication is rare and deeply appreciated. So now let's hear from some students from Queensboro Community College. And I believe the first question is from Jake.
What strategies can young individuals, particularly students, employ to actively participate in the development of policies that will influence their educational experiences, future career prospects, and the overall quality of life within their communities?
Easy question, right?
Yeah, thank you, Jake. That's a great question, and I wish I could say this to every young person. I think even whether you're in college or even high school, I tell students, take a look at all the clubs that your school offers. See what topics kind of interest you. What makes you do, a double take and want to read a little bit more about the club. And then look into organizations right in your own neighborhood, either where your school is or where your workplace is or where you live, whatever is convenient for you, and find out what kind of organizations who work on those issues where the clubs looked of interest to you, those topics, and try to attend a meeting. Look on their website or Facebook page and see what they're about. And another thing is, take a look at research who your local elected officials are, right? People usually know or just focus on the president or the senators. But look who your community board leaders are, your city council member, your state senator, state assembly member, and of course your Congress member. But when you have problems, whether you like something that, a policy that exists, or you want an improvement, it's helpful to know all the players that are involved and can help make that change, or that you can write a letter to, or even go visit their office in your, area. Yeah.
Thank you for that feedback. I think we have a second question from Nazmul.
As an international student, I deeply value the opportunities provided here, but I also find difficulties such as navigating immigration policies and feeling sense of belongings. How is your office working for the international students to make the resource and opportunities more accessible both during and after their studies to work and serve in New York's diverse communities? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's, I think he knows what he's doing.
I know, yes.
But that's a great question. Immigration is actually one of the top issues that people come to our office for. Almost every single week, the most number of cases that we get inquiries about are related to immigration. And it can be anything from backlog to what is the federal government doing, or I need help, we need change. People should always feel free to contact our office. If we cannot provide the answer, we usually know of an organization that can actively support your case or whatever you're working on. What we also do a lot is we do mobile offices. We can go to a CUNY site. We can go to your local house of worship, local organization, and partner with you, and we can bring all our immigration-related resources, and people can come with their cases, with their questions. We're always happy to provide that support as well.
Well, thank you for that. I know that, that's another, for our viewers to know that constituent services has to spend a lot of time, and like I said, I know that you have great dedicated staff who would provide personal attention to what the issues might be and do that. We've run out of time, and it's been a great joy to have you here today. Thank you so much for your service. I know that CUNY is blessed to have you supporting our work in DC and here in New York, and being such a great advocate for education, for justice, for equality, for small businesses, for communities, for women, all the things that you do. So thank you for that. And to our viewers, that's our show. Thank you for joining us on Café con Felo, where we continue to highlight the stories of extraordinary individuals who are making a difference in our communities. Please turn in for Café con Felo on weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. on CUNY TV. Saludos.